Welcome to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wangler.
Good morning and welcome back to Inside the Game here on this Wednesday, November the 5th, number 184. Just 16 away here from number 200. I'm Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler, our producer, Mr.
Thanks
Ryan
for turning that
Walensky.
horn down, Ryan.
Yep, you got to turn the horn down, he's saying. It's too loud.
No, I said thank you for doing it.
I was about to say, it was like pretty.
Yeah, no, appreciate you, man.
Low.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't
my ears were bleeding
it wasn't in
yesterday.
my ears that loud. But hey, yesterday had a great show, great conversation. We in the afternoon we had a chance to talk with Gunnar Thorhalsson, the Mr. Soccer, the first ever goalkeeper in the 50-year history of high school soccer in the state of Michigan. We had a great conversation. So if you have not watched that interview, it is available on YouTube, also available on our Roku channel. Check that out. We had a good 15-minute conversation talking about what it means to him, his support system, and so much more. So make sure you check that out. That's right, Mr. Soccer right there. And I do have to make an apology. We did spell Gunnar wrong.
We did?
Yep. Yeah, we did. And, I take full responsibility for that. Gunnar, I apologize. There is an A and not an E. In all honesty, his friend who reached out to me yesterday and said, hey, you spelled it wrong, goes 50% of the time they spell it wrong. So I guess we're in that 50% that spells it wrong, not the one that gets it right. But either way, we do apologize. But we had a blast having that exclusive interview yesterday. His first interview that he had after receiving word that he was, in fact, Mr. Soccer. So exciting times for him. Check out that whole thing. So for me this week, on Monday, I had a chance to call, the women's basketball game, their season opener, official season opener, on Monday against Cleary University, and some pretty cool things happening from that game. Right, we said 3,000 kids. Ryan, you were there for the first couple minutes of that game. A very interesting moment happened. Right in the third quarter. And our very own Matt Kibbe, who's done work for us, does work for Detroit Mercy, does work for Oakland, actually filling in for Kevin Beers, who is the normal PA public address announcer at Oak University. And Matt Kibbe, my goodness, man, a moment of brilliance from him. Right, what he was able to do, during that, because again, as broadcasters, we tend to do things kind of in self-preservation, right? We try to do social media posts and we try to share our reels with people to get people excited and to give ourselves some exposure. And Matt Kibbe pulls out his cell phone, records himself as Layla Gold is stepping to the line at the arena. There at that point it was 65-13 at that point.
Ooh.
And then it went 66, and then of course when we said 67, that's when the whole place just exploded with excitement. That kid's video's got 1.8 million views right now on TikTok.
That's wild.
That's pretty sweet.
I think he had almost 260,000 likes, some under 1,000 comments. And 23,000 shares the last time I looked. That's really impressive. And
yeah,
again, it was cool. I was there with John Ricari. We were on the call. Oakland actually posted our call of the moment and all the camera angles of the kids having some fun. I have no idea how many views it has. I looked at it this morning. Had 7,000 likes. 1,400 comments and 14,000 reshares, so it's probably doing pretty well. But yeah, it was a cool moment to say the least, and we're seeing that all across the country right now in these kids games. Everyone's getting excited about none other than 6-7.
6-7.
So yeah,
crazy. Yeah, and sometimes all you need is like that one moment to really kind of launch you in the right direction. So I hope that's the case for Kibbe, because I know he busts his butt. I know he does a lot of different things, and cool kid too. And it's crazy. All those videos that I've been seeing, like, they're all on free throws. You know what I mean? Like, they all happened on free throws, every single 6-7. So it's not like a 3-pointer or like a cool dunk or anything. I think I've seen 5 different schools that have something similar to this, and all of them were on like either and 1 free throws or like 2 free throws. Like, just the funniest thing ever. But no, I was watching that, and listen, so much of this, at least when it comes to social media, and we've had this conversation before too, right? Like, it's you can't forecast going viral. Like, no one goes viral on purpose. Like, let me just put it that way. Like, no one does. Like, sometimes you just kind of throw stuff out there and you're like, I hope it does well. But sometimes it's just right place, right time. And Matt Kibbe obviously had the wherewithal to know that, hey, this is going to be what it is, turned his camera on. And I thought he sounded great too. So what a great moment for him, and it's cool to see his social media taking off. But yeah, man, sometimes all you need is one good one to really launch you in the right direction. That certainly was the case for me with the Masters bit once upon a time years ago. But that's cool.
No, absolutely. So obviously you want to check that out. You can check it out on TikTok, on all social media. I'm pretty sure it's everywhere right now at this point. But hey, when we come back, we're going to dive into a topic. It's a head turner. For sure, page turner. However you want to put it. There is some dissent that's taking place right now in some of the ranks within Angel City in the NWSL. We'll talk about that. Yesterday, also was announced that North Carolina FC will not participate in the USL Championship here next season. We'll talk about what that reason's all about. You're watching number 184 here this morning on Inside the Game.
Experience the thrill of the game like never before with NSN's Game Rewind. Dive into full match commentaries enhanced with cutting-edge dynamic graphics, letting you relive the highs and lows of your favorite matches in astonishing detail. Whether it's a championship win or a legendary play, NSN Game Rewind bridges the past and future with a broadcast experience designed to captivate. Call 586-304-4405 and start watching today. Unforgettable moments for your audience? NSN offers professional live streaming and full broadcast services tailored to your needs. From high-quality production to exceptional coverage, we ensure your game or event becomes a spectacle to remember. Book your next game with us today. Call 586-304-4405 to schedule your broadcast and let NSN bring the action to life like never before.
Welcome back here to Inside the Game here on this Wednesday morning. Number 184, Jonathan Turner alongside Nathan Wangler and Ryan Galinsky. And Ryan, I think that before, and Nathan, before we dive into this topic, I think it's important that one, this is a very polarizing type of a thing. I mean, in today's world, there's not like there's a lot of things where everyone's like on the same page about, but I think that there is a tremendous amount of polarization on this topic. And even though I think to be fair, this specific topic, Nathan, isn't so much about race. I know that that's what kind of came out of it as well, but I think it has more to do with the women's sports environment. And I think trying to find their way. I think that's really kind of like the undertone of this. I know that the comments coming in from Angel City and their captains and their leadership are saying it's both. But I mean, it started with about gender and about identifying and about what is the right way to be able to determine, right? The players and whether they're male or female, and what part does the league have in determining that so that it's a level playing field. Let's start with the comments and Ryan. Let's start with what happened here. I think on Monday.
October 27th is when this came out.
Thank you.
So this is Angel City. This all started from a article from Elizabeth Eddy, who's part of the Angel City team in the NWSL. She made an article basically saying that the league needs to genetically test players before they enter the league and not allow players born without ovaries into the league. And on that article post, make sure I don't butcher the name, there was a player from Orlando Pride, Barbara Banda, who was like the face of this article. And she happens to be she's African-American, and she's over from Africa. And she's gotten a couple of bit of heat. And her captain from Angel City, Sarah Gordon, and vice captain, Angelina Anderson, held an open press conference Monday. That's where the Monday comes from. On behalf of the locker room, responding to their own teammate, Elizabeth Eddy's New York Post article. In the article, I mentioned that she's vouching for testing players and not allowing certain players in the league. Gordon then said, the article doesn't speak for this team. I've had a lot of convos with my teammates, and they are hurt and they are harmed by this article. She also goes on to say that the article is transphobic and racist. Your guys' thoughts?
First off, I want to shout out to Michael Lathrop on Facebook chiming in here this morning. Good morning, gentlemen, is what he said here a few moments ago.
Morning.
As I said before, as I was kind of like introing into this whole conversation, very polarizing conversation. And, something that we talked about here before the show, here are three men talking about women's soccer and the impact. And we've talked about women's sports generally. We talked about Caitlin Clark here during the summer about her impact on the WNBA and how it seems at times, if not a lot of the time, that she's under attack by her female counterparts. Again, I will never step foot on a field as a female athlete, right? That's never going to happen. Obviously, I'm also in my 40s, so my athletic days are over with. But I have two daughters. And, my daughter, Brianna, she swims, and she swims on a girls' swimming team. There's my other daughter, Zoe, wants to play volleyball next year.
Shout out.
And so she wants to play some volleyball, and so she's excited about that.
It's a fun sport.
If you notice this, when it comes to women's sports, in the name of the sport, it says women's. Right? I mean, in the name. I mean, Major League Soccer is Major League Soccer. There's no Major League Men's Soccer. It's Major League Soccer, right? But NWSL, National Women's Soccer League, right? WNBA, Women's National Basketball Association. The W stands for women. Now, I'm not here to tell you how to identify or that's not it. I'm just saying that that's what is in the name of the league. And so while you might not agree with how the op-ed was written, and we can all agree that when it's come to writing a story or writing something, that you can oftentimes misunderstand the point of the message. You know what I mean? Misunderstand because it's written. How many times have you written an email or a text message and someone goes, Mel, that was terrible because you weren't able to portray in your own words the emotional component, the underlying emotion of it in a way that would resonate with that person. We all do it. We're all guilty of it. And so do I think that, Eddy here it was terrible for writing this article? No. Do I think her opinions are strong? Yes, I do. Do I agree with all of her opinions? No, I do not. But do I also agree that when it comes to the women's game, I feel like that game's under attack right now? I feel like women's sports are under attack. For the longest time, it was about getting more money. For the longest time, it was about women should get paid equally. They should, for what they're doing out in the field, what do we see U.S. women's national team players do here many years ago? Alex Morgan, Megan Rapinoe, they're all vying for more money. More money, more money, more money. Now they have to worry about who they're playing up against on the field too. And again, the question that I ask, and I think this is the most important question I could ask, because until it becomes a personal thing, it's real easy for us to all say it's terrible or it's all great. Until you've actually physically experienced it for yourself, you really can't have the opinion that we all probably agree with would actually be the right opinion. If a player right now on an NWSL team lost their position to a male-born, now identifying as a female athlete, and they were no longer in NWSL, would they still support that? Would they still support it? If you lost your livelihood over another player taking your spot. Now, it's one thing to lose the spot to a better player who, growing up, you saw him on the field. We all had him. I played against boys soccer players, men's soccer players who I knew were better than me. And on any given day, they were going to kick my ass in the game. I knew that. But now you're saying that a female athlete has to worry about another athlete possibly who is male-born, who physically may not be able to match up against, and now they're losing their spot to that player. I think that's a question that needs to be asked, and I think that would change. I think again, if it happens, the personal opinion of so many of these athletes that maybe are in the masses and say, hey, we don't care. We just want to play soccer. You want to play soccer until it becomes a threat, and then when that threat is real, what do you do? And I mean, it's a mess, and obviously you don't want it to be part of this, but that's the world that we live in. How do we navigate it? I don't know. Nathan, I know you have some opinions about this as well. You're up, my guy.
Yeah, I mean, the trouble of bringing up topics like these is that just the mere mention of something of the sort can be seen as hateful, especially in 2025 with the way that we have really these knee-jerk reactions to things without even really kind of reading into the context of what's being said. And I do think it's interesting because there is a portion, and I'm reading up on NBC's write-up of it, talking about how several of Elizabeth Eddy's teammates have approached her in private to show their support and show that they agree with what she's saying. And the reason being is because if those players go public, well, you guys, we know a thing or two because we work in the media and we understand what it is. We know what cancel culture is. And for someone like Elizabeth Eddy to obviously put herself on the front line of that is in a lot of ways, and I think she understands what she's getting into, is that she's potentially sacrificing her career in order to do this and in order to try and, what is in her mind, protect not only women's soccer, but women's sports. Now, again, I'm just speaking of this from her perspective, but merely mentioning things like this can be seen as offensive. And I think the NWSL in particular has played into that, right? So let's keep in mind, and I think it's good that we add context to what this story is. The reason why they're all rallying around the one player in Banda was because you have to go back, and I know we talked about this earlier, the 2022 Women's Africa Cup of Nations, right? She wasn't allowed to participate because of testosterone levels. Now, she was one of 4 players in the Zambian Football Association that were, deemed not fit to play, or maybe too fit to play, I guess, if you were, too much testosterone. But she was used as the cover image for this article. So I think that's where that misunderstanding came in. But what I find really interesting here, JT, and I said this earlier before we came on air, is that there used to be a measure in place in the NWSL when it came to this, right? Whether it be if you were born male and transitioned to female, or if your testosterone levels were too high, where they said they will only make requests to test for that stuff and try to figure out if there's some sort of advantage on the field, if it is, quote, reasonable and made in good faith. Now, I see that as, okay, that makes sense. If it's very clear that someone has a far and away advantage over everybody on the field, we see this in other sports. You know, if someone goes out and hits 4 home runs in a game and they're all tanks, you're probably going to be like, we need to go see if that guy's on PEDs. You know, like this is not normal what he's doing. So I have no issue with the policy in place going, hey, if we see something that's out of the ordinary, we're going to make sure that there isn't some sort of inherent advantage. The issue that I think Eddie is having comes into play here. That policy was dropped in 2022. There is no policy in place. There is no policy in place to ask. There's no policy in place to figure out what sort of advantage, whether it be testosterone, whether it be if you are a born male. And here's where it's problematic with me. And I know I have to walk a fine line here, but I just want to establish something because I think at least us three, we agree on something. If being born a male, right, genetically speaking, right, men are stronger than women, right? If you are born a male and you don't identify as such anymore, if that provides you an advantage on the field, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't, but let's just say hypothetically for our situation, it does, right? Because you were talking about a little bit earlier, how would you feel if you were personally affected by something like this? Let's assume that it does. You test for PEDs, you test for other things that are going to give players an advantage, but yet for some reason, because it's taboo and we don't feel that it's right to ask or even really investigate, even if it's in good faith. Because again, remember that policy is not in place anymore. So you really can't ask in general anymore. How is it any different? You still have a physical advantage on the field of play, and that makes a difference in the game. Where do we draw the line? And I think that's what Eddie is trying to say. She's not trying to discriminate against any particular player. She's just saying, hey, where's the line when it comes to this? Because men's sports, to your point, JT, is not really threatened by these types of topics and conversations. That's why we don't, that's in a way, that's why we don't really talk about the men's game when it comes to these really hard talks, which I will admit it is hard. It's hard having these conversations because I don't want to offend anybody. I don't hate anybody. Whatever you want to do, you do. This is America. Like, I honestly, genuinely, that's how I believe. And I'm very socially like that too. But these are topics that are worth talking about. But it's hard to even bring it up because really it only affects the women's game. This isn't something we deal with on the men's side of the card. So there's a lot of context that goes into what led to this article being released. But I also think it's important to admit that just because the public response was overwhelmingly negative doesn't mean that there aren't people in that clubhouse that align with what this thinking is and believe that, you know, maybe we need to do a little bit more to protect the women's soccer game in the United States.
Yeah, again, I think we all do agree on this as far as, again, that the men's game is not under attack. I mean, there might be a lot of different things that happen within the men's game that, you could argue here or there or whatever, but
and there's still steroids and all that stuff that happens. Yeah.
Here's the thing. Every player on earth who is a competitor is trying to get an edge. Everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody's trying to get an edge. I say competitive because not every athlete is competitive. There's a difference. Every athlete out there that is competitive, that is striving to get to the next level, is looking for an edge. It could be in the type of coffee that they drink. It could be in the supplements and the nutrition. It could be in how they train. I mean, Jerry Rice was known for training his ass off. Nobody else would do that. He was up and down hills and running. I mean, the guy was in immaculate shape his entire career. It's why he stayed healthy. It's why he had longevity. It's why he's one of the greatest receivers in the history of the sport. He found an edge. And for him, it was just working his tail off. That's what his edge was. You see players who have taken shortcuts over the years, right? Where it was probably widely accepted under the radar, right? We've seen Lance Armstrong, who recovered from testicular cancer, right? Taking performance-enhancing drugs to give himself a chance to get back on the bike and do his thing. Yeah, it cost him in the end, but at that time, he was trying to get himself what? An edge and to get back into the game. And what were all the other athletes doing? Probably the same thing, right? Because
not to the extent that Lance was. Yeah, that was kind of the point of all of it.
Yeah.
He went to an extreme with it, and as inspiring of a story it is, that's the reason why he was able to do what he did. Now picture a situation in which there's nothing in effect to where you can't really test for it. Like, you can only in good faith, hey, like, ask, like, Lance, are you taking something? Can we test you? Like, no, I'm not. Okay, well, then we move on. And I mean, could you imagine, like, in the steroid era in baseball, like if they were only allowed to test in good faith and it wasn't something that was routine or random or, whatever it is. I'm not trying to compare. This is apples and oranges. I'm not trying to compare the two because they're completely different situations.
I think it's important I think it's important to actually lay that foundation about everyone's trying to get an edge. And again, being born a male and ultimately deciding that you want, that you identify as a female and making that unbelievably, I would imagine, difficult decision, and maybe in some cases very easy decision. I don't want to pretend to know the decision-making process.
It's a hard transition.
Is monumental in someone's life. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen, these, and that's not trying to get an edge. That's just trying to live a normal life. Whether you agree with it or not, you're trying to live a normal life in your eyes. And who am I to tell you or what you should do with your life? I mean, it's your life. If you feel that you need to do something, like go do it. It makes you feel happy. It makes you happy. That's all I care about as a human being. And I love everybody. I don't hate anybody. Even the people I don't agree with, I still don't hate. And I think it's an important thing because we talked about this before from a polarizing standpoint, is that it's real easy when your emotions get really high to maybe say things, do things, speak things that just aren't what you would normally do. And boils, your blood starts to boil, and we get upset, we get frustrated, we get offended.
Right. Well, in hate and immediately being defensive, I mean, all it does is it just shuts down conversation. Like, that's the really hard thing about mentioning something like this. And that's why we talk about it on a show like this, because it allows us the space and the time to actually get into what exactly it is and what could come of it. But that's really what's hardest about when you look at the public reaction from the team. Like, that doesn't promote dialogue inside of the clubhouse. That doesn't promote dialogue, inside of the league as to what we can do to change things. Because what I'm curious about is, again, like, what led to in 2022 that law, that rule being in place, again, only making requests reasonable, in good faith, all that. Like, what would lead to something like that not being the case anymore? That's my question.
Well, because again, I mean, probably somebody raised a red flag and said, let's not do this anymore.
No.
I mean, there once upon a time, marijuana wasn't legal. Now it's legal. I mean, I can only imagine what that's like testing nowadays. I mean, I'm assuming the NFL had to stop testing for marijuana, right? I mean, NBA stopped testing. It's legal in almost every state, and it's legalized federally, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously, states have now distribution channels. So I mean, it's like that's changed the way we do things in sport as well. I mean, and so. I think what the challenge is because I would probably argue, and again, let's be honest here, vast majority of women athletes are not going to be dealing with this. You know what I mean? It's a minority of players. And so, maybe that's it too. Well, we only have, maybe a handful of players in history that would even consider this. And so do we need to really cut a policy? I mean, and if you create a policy, does that maybe create another? That might be it too. I mean,
yeah. And the other thing too is, like, it's worth noting that I don't think there's a single player in the NWSL, at least from researching this, that is outwardly trans. admittedly trans, right? So I'm not saying you have to say that stuff. Your sexuality is your sexuality. No one is required to have to tell anybody that, especially, I mean, if to say that there has to be a statute in place in order to tell people that, I think is maybe a little bit too far. However, that is worth noting because, again, we're raising this issue and we're talking about it, but we don't want to create hysteria. Like, that's what upsets me is when, and obviously we've seen this topic in sports media and in circles before, is when people take it to an extent to say, like, women's sports are being taken over. Like, we need to calm down with that stuff. Like, this is just simply something we are noticing in our societal shift that has certainly been happening over the last, decade, maybe a little bit longer than that. But that is what this conversation is about. The hysteria side we need to step away from, because that's just not true. And it is worth noting that nobody is admittedly that. And also, I want to say, like, just because you have elevated testosterone levels as a woman does not inherently give you an advantage on the pitch. Like, testosterone levels vary in men as well, believe it or not. Like, there are professional athletes that have very low testosterone levels that sometimes need to take supplements or sometimes don't even know they have low T until they finally find out, I can't recover from injuries nearly as fast or something else along those lines. Like, I don't tend to believe that simply because you have more testosterone that all of a sudden you're automatically that much better than everybody else on the field. It's just, it's the other side of, again, transitioning, but you don't have a single outward athlete. So is this something that's actually happening in the NWSL, or is this hearsay? That's what makes maybe this a little bit more
Here's the
confusing.
thing too, right? And I think it's also important to put this in perspective. Elizabeth Eddy is not a star inside of the National Women's Soccer League. I think it's important to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Right? She's not a starter. She played in 0 matches, I think, this season. She played in 87 matches in 3 seasons. In her
87 minutes.
87 minutes in 3 years. Okay? And so I think it's important to state that because the psychological component of being a player who is not playing a lot is looking for excuses and reasons as to why they're not in the field. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, we all did it as athletes. Why am I not playing? Why am I not on the field? I should be out there, coach. Why am I not out there? Some throw tantrums. Gio Reyna. Right? I mean, like, some throw tantrums and have hissy fits. Others, and again, I'm not saying that what Eddy put down in the op-ed is a direct correlation to her not playing. But if you're threatened as an athlete and you're looking for reasons as to why you're not on the field, it's easy to start pointing to players who don't look like you, don't think like you, who aren't playing like you, and start to say, hey, maybe that's the reason why I'm not on the field right now. And I told you, it's a personal thing too, right? Until someone walks up to you and says, hey, you've lost your spot. Now, again, think about this, right? In soccer, I'm not sure how many NWSL teams are on, but my guess, I think, is around 14. Do we know how many teams there are, Ryan? I think it's 14. So let's just, so if there's 14, it's 14 goalkeepers. And there's 14 backups. Right? So at any given time,
14.
Yeah, 14 teams. So that's 14 backups too, right? So you got 28 players who are all fighting for one spot on a team on the field. And if, again, we talk about that. That's just like in football, quarterback. There's only one quarterback. You're not playing 3 quarterbacks in a game unless you're like the Jets. Yeah.
Or the Browns.
Unless you absolutely have to. Yeah, exactly.
Right? So,
right.
So with that being said, you're fighting for that role. And again, there are other 10 players. I mean, interchangeable, but your center backs are typically center backs, so you have 2 of those. You're fighting for these positions. And again, if you're a backup goalkeeper, what are you trying to do? First off, you're hoping and praying that something happens that puts you on the field. It could be the other goalkeeper got 6 goals scored on them, an injury, a red card. I mean, you name it. You're looking for you want, because once you're on that field, it's your time, it's your chance. And so I think that's important to understand the psychological component of being an athlete and wanting to be on the field. And if you believe that there's a player out there who hasn't earned that, they have an extra edge. Because again, all these players they know who's doing what. They know who's working harder, not working harder. They know there's coaches' favorites. All that stuff still happens, whether it's in the U13 girls soccer team or NWSL soccer team, at the highest level in this country. And so I think that that's an important thing to acknowledge, that there's a psychological component to this of I want to be on the field, and I'm looking for any reason as to why I'm not. And this, to be fair,
other side of this
has some signs of that.
Yeah, well, the other side of this is too, and I'm just playing devil's advocate and just having a conversation on the other side here. It also might show that because she has her degree, she could probably get a really good, nice paying job if she wasn't playing anymore. Not that she wants to be out of the game, but there's not as much pressure to do something like this, to go to these lengths, to go to the media, to do those things if you're not a star player. If I'm a star player in this situation, I'm not going to the media and saying these things. I'm not putting my career, I'm not putting what I have going for me and the potential that I have and where I'm going. I'm not putting all of that on the shelf to bring up something like this to the media, even if I do passionately believe in whatever the message is. I'm not taking a step forward and saying these things unless, again, as you were talking about earlier, it directly affects you. Then maybe you're willing to do something like that. But I also think that that's something else that's worth considering. Is she's been around. You talked about what she's had 3 championships as a sub.
Yeah,
she's been in the league for a little bit.
But
that's still an impressive resume. And like I'm saying, she's probably towards the tail end of her career. But all I'm saying, JT, is if I'm a star player, I'm not going to these lengths to talk about these things. That's not something that's on my radar. So I think that's the other side of it is too.
Well, okay, then the argument, is would this rise to the same? And again, I know that the NFL and NWSL, they're not in the same realm, right? We saw what Colin Kaepernick did with taking a knee during the game, during national anthem, right, making a stance. That completely ruined his career. Now, granted, his not playing, being a very good quarterback, also ruined his career. But we could argue that was what led to his spiraling down. He's not playing, right? You've got this. Now, this is not in a game, but to be fair, this is probably way more, I guess, out there on the New York Post, right? So this is the same kind of thing. You're making this post, this statement about the league in which you play in, and doing it very publicly. Does it rise to that same kind of level?
I don't really see her being a part of this organization for much longer. I think something like this could easily, you talk about rolling a grenade out into the middle of a room. That's just kind of what this article is. And so, yeah, but I think I said this to begin, what we were talking about with this conversation. I think she understood what the risks were. I don't think she went in unknowing of what this could potentially do, not only to her career or whatever else along those lines. I think she knew. I think she embraced it. And so does it lead to bad stuff for her? Yeah. I don't really see her being a part of the league much longer. And also because of what she hasn't really done over the last 3 years. Not to dog on someone, and she's been a part of the team. That's pretty cool. But I do see this not working out, at least for her in this club. And who knows? I hope it doesn't actually force this club to go into free fall, because something like this could really mix up a locker room for sure. But I think she's top of the list in that regard.
Well, and then it begs the question, right? If you're there's 2 ways to go about change. One is internally, right? And so, is there a mention in the article, Ryan, about her reaching out to the NWSL prior to this article, and this was like her last hope?
No, there's nothing. I don't think she's ever reached out to the league.
That's another thing, right? It's like we live in this world too now where you don't kind of follow, like you go to your coach. Hey, coach, I have some concerns. Hey, general manager, I have some concerns. How do you think I should approach this? Hey, league commissioner, I want to get in your ear. I want to talk. Hey, let's talk to the player association. There's a way in which you should do things if you're trying to affect change. I mean, what happened with Riley Gaines in swimming, right? We saw what happened there, right? And that was a very personal thing for her, you know, facing off against in a swimming pool, right? And having that, and then having the locker room interaction, right? You know, it was a very public thing for her, so she made it more public. This doesn't seem like a very public thing that's been happening, more behind the scenes, and so it seems like went nuclear to like DEFCON 1, you know, before you even got to DEFCON 5. It's like you didn't go down the you know, DEFCON 4 or 3, right? I mean, right, I think that's how it goes, right?
You're ridiculous.
Nuclear, you know?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe with how I don't know how they do it. I just watched that movie, The House of Dynamite, on Netflix, by the way, which totally confuses the shit out of me. So that's probably, but I think it goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But anyways, whatever. We didn't go the DEFCON route here, Eddie. Mm-hmm. Is that right, Ryan? Did she? Yeah. Sorry,
I was muted. I was just reading a little bit more at the moment. She also added Eddie, that is, added that she's cool with people wanting to disagree with her. She's and her teammates especially. She says she still loves her teammates and is supportive of them having their own opinion. She also said after the fact that she heard from current players who agree with my points but are too fearful to speak up. And she thinks that the NWSL needs to maintain its identity and momentum. But she is 34, so I don't think she's going to be in the league much longer regardless. But
yeah,
I mean, hey.
Oh, there's one way. There's a right way and a wrong way to do your swan song. This might not be the right way. I mean, like Christine Press just retired, right? She went out and scored a goal here this weekend, right? And and her last game, and you know, had her swan song. I mean, that's the way to do it. Here's the thing. I think whether you agree with her or not, and again, I could look at this article and say there's some things I agree with, and I can also agree with Gordon and Angel City. I can look at both, you know. And do I think that Eddie picked the photo? No, I think the New York Post picked the photo because the New York Post wants readers, and readers come when they see an article that is controversial. So I absolutely think that this was done on purpose, you know. And so you know, but with that being said. It's really difficult to. Oh, yep, we all know you're right, but no one's gonna want to hop on board with you because of how you did it. There's a right way and a wrong way to do something, right? Whether you said it or not, and how you put it, this was the wrong way to go about it. If you're trying to affect change, this is not the right way to go about it. I think there's better ways, and internally and talking with team. Again, maybe the team too, right? If you think about this, if the team was all in tune. If they all agree, like this is one of those things where like when U.S. women's national team wanted higher pay, they all got together as a group and said, let's go do this. Let's go do this. And they went and did it. You know?
Yeah, but you're never going to get everybody to rally together about something like this. Like equal pay is one thing, but something like this and how taboo this is.
And keeping the field level for women to play, you think that for most of them would want to be on board with that.
But if it's seen as discriminatory, it could mean the end of their career.
They believe personally, but it's because of what they believe in the societal aspect of this.
No, that's great, and I agree with you.
Than anything else.
I agree with you, yeah, but it's that's what I'm saying. Like it's going to be seen as discriminatory, and it's going to put their careers at risk, and so that's really what it all comes back to me. But you know, yeah, you can do having the conversations and bringing it up in private, but I mean. I think you and I would agree the only way to make change is to make a splash. The only way to make change is to make a scene because you have to get people talking about it. You have to get people thinking about it. You have to get conversations going, whether or not that's good for your personal career. Again, that's what Colin Kaepernick, you brought up a good example. Like he wanted to see change. He was willing to sacrifice his own career in order to do so.
I don't think
I don't agree.
I don't agree. At the time, the significance of it, though.
I don't agree with the idea that he didn't know what he was getting himself into. I think he knew exactly what he was getting himself into. The ultimate
significance of it, though, I think he knew that there was some. I don't think that he truly knew his career was over because of it. I don't think he knew that.
I think he knew it was going to be affected.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
In a negative way. Now, to the extent that it was, yeah, maybe he didn't know it was going to go quite that far, and I don't think he was treated fairly. I mean, I mean, just from a football perspective, not that that matters, and we're not talking about that, but he wasn't a great quarterback at the end of his career. So I don't tend to believe that he would be a guy that you want to build a franchise around. So I think people tend to leave that out of the conversation. Like, no, that's the only reason. Like, no, like it's not, guys. Like, take it from someone who actually watches the game a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
But I think he knew going into it that just by doing that one thing, maybe he didn't think he would know he would start the movement that he did, but I think he understood what that would bring in terms of the NFL being like, hey, we got to handle our image, right, wrong, or different.
Yeah. No, I think it's great, a great point. And, I think making a splash in today's world, I'm not saying you shouldn't have to do it, but if I look at making a splash, we could all agree that with what Kaepernick did when he did it, there was and there still is a divide in regards to the racial component of our country, right? I would on some level I think it's probably gotten a little better over the last couple of years than it was in the couple of years before that. I mean, the whole George Floyd thing, but there was a lot of stuff happening back in the the 2010 through 2020 that was just like, it was shaking the world, man, in a lot of different ways. And so if I'm looking at the NWSL, I don't know of any players or any situations right now that would require such a splash. Now, across the sports environment, which is, to be fair, it's in the youth and the high school and the collegiate environment that really it's kind of, and unless maybe there's some things coming up down the pipe that we haven't heard as far as, within in the collegiate world where there's players who are competing and maybe there's a chance they could make their way into the NWSL. I don't know if there was enough happening where you're all like, oh my gosh, like this is a problem. We need to make a difference like right now to raise the red flag and say, let's go. That's where my thoughts at is if you're making a splash, I get it. I mean, if you're looking at it like equal pay, if all the players in the WSL, just like we've been seeing in the WNBA, where every player has been talking about pay, every player, you see it in T-shirts, it's everywhere. The whole league is well aware that there's a problem with pay, and they've been talking about them getting a raise, and so that's going to happen obviously after this season because there's been this uprise about it. A splash has happened, and it was a league-wide splash. There was a significant issue with pay in the WNBA. We could all agree that that was a thing. Where is the significant issue in the NWSL where we have to raise this, have to make a splash? I mean, I don't see this being a systemic issue. This seems to be more isolated. And I think, again, if you're trying to make change for the entire league, you go in and say, hey, this is an issue that's probably going to affect a few players. Probably a good idea to maybe have something in place in case we have players that come in, make sure that we're good. Don't know what that looks like. Maybe start a panel. I don't know. It doesn't seem like that was the case. It's like we just went into we went nuclear.
Yeah, but also we don't know, right? I mean, there's no self-reporting. No one's going in and asking these questions. There's no law in place to do any of that. A lot of that is seen as discriminatory. I'm sure there have been lawyers involved that have said, hey, you simply can't do that. There's certain things you can't do. But you and I know, right, from we've been in a locker room, there's a big time difference between the guy like you and me who's in the press box covering a team or someone that's there watching the team and then being on the team. We know everything that goes on in the clubhouse. We know everything that goes on in practice. Heck, we even know what goes on in the locker room.
Do you think though that there'd be players that would speak out about this?
Yes.
I mean, on a massive level, if there was as much, again, I'm not part of these teams, obviously we're not in the locker room, but I find it hard to believe that there'd be a play again. It's hard
that
to speak
wouldn't.
Out. It's hard to speak out. It's hard to do that. You're putting yourself in a tremendous spot, right? I get that. And so, do I think that there's a problem within the NWSL where there aren't? I mean, there's this situation. I guess I don't know. But clearly, Eddie thinks there's an issue, and that's why she raised the red flag. It's going to cost her. And if she's the martyr in all this, I guess is that the word to use, right? If she's the one who's willing to take the the hit? Is she become the martyr? I mean, is Colin Kaepernick a martyr?
I mean, it takes one, right? He started doing it. Other people started doing it. I just covered a soccer game recently, just this last weekend or 2 weekends ago, where someone kneeled for the national anthem. I mean, this is it started with him, and obviously it built to something much larger than him. Now, I don't think her plan is to be a martyr. I don't think that's what her plan is. But if you're asking me if would players be afraid to speak out about something like this, absolutely. 100% they would, and I understand why they would. You know, so I wouldn't go as far as to be like she's putting herself on this altar as in like I am the sacrificial lamb for this big movement. I think that what she's doing is she's just trying to bring up something that maybe that she's seeing. Because again, if it's not just because there's nothing on record that shows that this is specifically happening, doesn't mean it's not happening. And again, with other teammates coming up to her and confirming what she has said, and I tend to believe that there's no such thing as she's the only person who sees these things and agrees with these things in that locker room. Like there's no way she's not. I don't believe that she's paranoid. I don't believe that she's losing her cookies. I do think that there might be some validity to what she's saying, and if other people are confirming it, well, even if that's just simply anecdotal, that tells me something. Because you're not going to get the entire clubhouse minus her that's like, no, this is wrong, this isn't happening. It's kind of a don't see, don't tell type of situation. And again, unless it affects you directly, it's tough to speak up about those things. I don't think her goal was to be a martyr. I think her goal was to just be like, hey, just because it's not in the media, just because the people watching don't really understand or they don't see what happens behind the scenes, doesn't mean maybe some of these things aren't happening. And the troubled spot is not now where it's like, okay, you have isolated examples of this happening or that happening. The issue becomes much larger when we look at it 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, if this becomes more of a trend, because you're going to take opportunities away from people who are, would otherwise be in that spot. I see it as no different as we talked about with like steroids, if we just allowed for open end and we didn't test for it and we were just like, okay, whatever, you're gonna create a situation where certain players are, their body isn't naturally going to go through the progressions of what a career would look like. There's not going to be a natural end to it. You're just allowed to do whatever you can, and then obviously you would destroy your body in the process. That's why I would advise never doing that. But this is, again, it's a hard conversation to have. I don't know if she necessarily sees herself as a martyr, but I do think she looked at it and thought, hey, like this is something that needs to at least be talked about, because there is no measure in place right now in the NWSL.
No, it's a really good point, and hey, I know it's a tough conversation, and we felt it was inclined to have this conversation, this discussion today about it. Obviously, your comments, your thoughts on this, and especially in regards to the NWSL, love to hear your thoughts. And yeah, Ryan, what do we have for question of the day?
Yeah, it's gonna be like a guessing one. You guys will have to guess what the question or when I present that question, what it'll be. But before we do that, Salt Athletic, an official sponsor of us here at the National Soccer Network. Use promo code Edison15 to save 15% off. There's that number one smell-proof cleat bag that 100% works. Visit saltathletic.com today or scan that QR code. But question of the day.
Ooh.
What is the youngest age that someone has played in a Champions League game?
I don't know. That's a good question.
So wait, hold on. Don't Google it.
Who's that?
You type it.
I'm not Googling. I'm typing something.
I saw your fingers. Yeah,
I'm typing in the email.
Right. Okay, sure. Wait, so Max Doman That was the Premier League, right?
Oh, you Googled it, you son of a gun.
No, we talked about him already on the show, right? He was 15 years and 9 months, right?
Yeah, Dowman was
Right, wrong?
young.
Okay, so that was the Premier League, right? That wasn't the
Yep.
Champions League?
That was Premier League.
Okay. So in the Champions League, I'm just guessing the age. I'm not guessing the particular
Just,
player.
you don't have to guess the player. Just guess the age.
Oh, okay. 14?
14. Is that your guess?
Yeah. That's extremely young. That's,
I'm just going to say 15.
15.
that's a decade.
Well, Max Dowman made history again. He is now the youngest player to play in the Champions League game ever. 15 years and 308 days. He played 18 minutes yesterday with a 6.6 FOTMA rating. So Max Dowman continues to make history. Also, it's also worth noting Arsenal had a ton of injuries and they weren't playing a very good team. So they gave him the start. At one point yesterday, there was 4 teenagers on the field all at one time.
Oh my God.
So yeah, Max Dowman continues to impress. But yeah, no, he has the Premier League record and the Champions League record all within like 2 or 3 months of each other, because I think that game was back in August against Leeds. But yeah, there's your question of the day presented by Salt Athletic.
Oh, wait, Mick Jack.
I swore I saw.
Hi, Mick Jack. How are you doing?
What's up, Mac Check? I swore I saw the reaction on your face when I said Max Dowman, and you're like, really? Like, we can't have some fun with this? Like, yeah. No, I had a feeling. I had a feeling it would be him.
Can I add one more point? Dowman, based on the rules, is not even allowed into the senior team locker room. Just so you guys know, he has to be 18 in order to be in the Arsenal locker room. So he has to get changed by himself. He cannot be in the first team locker room. That's why he comes off as a bench player. So he's not even allowed for another 2 years. Just over 2 years until he's allowed on the in the locker room.
So his mom or his mum gives him
English, so that's
a
right.
ride to the stadium, packs him a lunch, says have a good game. He gets off. He goes plays in the highest, some of the best soccer in the world, and then he gets off and he has his post game snack, and then he gets a ride home from mom back to his house.
You would be right.
Yeah, it's like a day. It's like a day in high school.
little fish and
playing
chips.
in the freaking Champions League.
It's crazy to think about that. Right?
So wild.
I mean, the youngest player to ever play,
my
I think, in the
God.
MLS was Freddie Adu back in the late 90s, early 2000s. I remember when it was. Is that still the same?
I don't know. Speaking of under a young group, the USA U17 team has started will start here in 15 minutes for their first World Cup game. In the U17, they're playing Burkina Faso. I've never heard of that country.
Oh, by the way, the youngest player to ever play was Kevin Sullivan, and 14
that makes
years
sense.
old.
That makes sense.
It was on July 17th, 2024. So
That does make sense.
Who?
We got like 2 minutes to kill here. Does anyone have any like fun story or something funny?
I was
that
just going to say
happened?
this.
Y'all wanted to
during
do
the
rock,
basketball
paper,
game,
scissors?
we talked about this yesterday, not on the show, but we talked about it, I think, off the air. We talked about musical chairs taking place. And maybe I did talk about it on the show. Did we talk about how
We talked about it pre-show. We never talked about it actually on the show.
But musical chairs was happening during halftime in the game on Monday. And Spartan alumni was the one who ended up winning the musical chairs, and I'm on the broadcast, and they were showing a replay of it as we come back in from break, and I was like, "Hey, look, MSU can't win in football, but they can win in musical chairs."
You're
Hell.
not wrong.
Heyo.
But that was a fun moment from Monday that you could watch on ESPN if you like to.
I mean, you're not wrong.
I think
They
they're
haven't won a game
numb
in,
to
like, 2
I think
months.
they're numb to football at this point. I don't even think,
Yeah, everybody.
I still go
knows
back to that
MSU
first
is
strip
known
sack
for
in that game.
basketball, so
Are they?
I still go
actually
back
known-
to that first. Well, what? What'd you say, Ron?
Are they actually known for basketball? I have never seen them win a national championship. So
that's right because you're like,
Oh, come
20.
on.
it's been
You
a
can only
quarter
go to
century since those
17
won one.
Final Fours.
It's also been since 2009 since he's been to Monday night. I'm just saying, I've seen UConn win national championships. I've seen Villanova
Yeah,
win
well,
multiple. Just saying.
UConn and Villanova have much better recruiting classes than Michigan State ever has. But, I mean, the players that he's
Miles
produced.
Bridges, Cassius, Josh Langford.
He produced those
But there
players.
are a lot of
I get
schools
it.
that don't do well in that sport, but are known for that sport.
How many national titles did John Calipari win with the best recruiting class in the country year after year?
And who
was
did he
at
lose
Kentucky.
to, by the way? A Division I Horizon School? Who was that again? Was that Oakland University and Greg Campy? Oh, that's right. That's right.
He did win one.
That's right.
He did
And
win
the
one.
coldest
with Anthony
white
Davis.
boy on the planet, Jack Golke.
Calipari also put 2 schools on probation.
The
I
golden
digress.
child, Jack Golke. That's right. But yeah,
That was a fun game, by the way.
That was a fantastic game.
was
You
a
were old
very
enough to see
fun
that
game.
game.
I was
Yeah.
one of my good buddies. He's a roommate of mine of 3 years, and he is very nonchalant about his sports teams, but he's a big Kentucky basketball fan. That was the first time I actually watched a Kentucky basketball game with him, and I've never seen some of the words and reactions come out of his body. That was horrible, and I still let him know that Oakland is. I texted him when Michigan beat Oakland in basketball. I said, "Hey, beating Oakland ain't for everybody."
I think also too important to acknowledge that Oakland is known for being a basketball school, even though their soccer teams have done very well over the years. But Oakland's a basketball school, and they're also very good at swimming. They've won national championships in swimming. But if you were to go to basketball school, right? They haven't won a whole bunch, but they've won some. So it helps when you have a coach who's been there, the head coach for 42 years now, the longest tenured head coach in the history of the NCAA. So there you go. Well, that'll wrap up episode number 184 here on this Wednesday. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning for number 185. We will dive into that USL Championship, with NCFC and why they're not playing in the 2026 season. We'll dive into that and much more. But that's Nathan Wengler and Ryan Glinsky, our producer. I'm Jonathan Turner. Again, don't forget to subscribe, like us, share this with your friends and family, and come back each and every morning live here on the National Soccer Network for Inside the Game. So long, everybody. From the biggest matches to the hottest takes, Jonathan Turner and Nathan Wengler bring you the stories, the analysis, and the edge you won't get anywhere else. Streaming live weekdays at 9 a.m. on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all major platforms. No filters, no fluff, just real talk, real soccer. This is Inside the Game.